Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Upgrades. I'm Jeremy Knoll.
And I'm John Suarez.
And today we're going to be talking about the Brothers War Commander deck, Urza's Iron Alliance. So there's two decks in this set, just like there were two decks from Dominaria United. And this one is pitting Urza against his brother Mishra. And the really cool thing about all these, which I'm sure you probably know, is that every single card in the deck is old borders. So trying to get that flavor of the old
right
Brothers
border.
The right border.
Correct border.
They picked they sent these out, you know, they published all the previews all at once pretty much and started talking about the old borders. And I looked through it and I was really kind of put off by some of these. And it's probably just a feeling of the fact that they've done this with some of the other cards where they've gone back and put old bordered on some like artifact cards that have colors. And in those, the border was artifact. It was a brown and it had the pips. These ones, all the artifacts are the color of the card rather than the brown artifact. And that threw me a little. Like,
because they're colors and not
Executioner's
colors.
Capsule for the first time as a black card.
And the card is a black card.
It's a black card, but seeing it as a black card and not an artifact card threw me a little.
Yeah,
that Biden of Thassa, the Biden of Thassa admittedly looks really cool that's in the deck, but it threw me a lot because that border is so different.
It looks great.
Little opinion aside there. We're going to start off with the very first one, which is Urza, Chief Artificer. This is the face card of the deck. It is 3 white, blue, black for a 4/5 legendary creature, Human Artificer. And it has affinity for artifact creatures. Artifact creatures you control have menace, and at the beginning of your end step, create a 0/0 colorless construct artifact creature token with this creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control.
Yeah.
We talked about this in the Commander versus where we actually played these decks against the Dominaria United decks. This deck is a little bit more of a go wide. It really wants to make some creature tokens, artifact creature tokens, hopefully more often. Whereas the Mishra one is more of a go tall, make like one really big creature, try and get through a bunch of stuff. So this one, you can see that in the affinity for artifact creatures. The more artifact creatures you have, the lower the commander tax is going to be, the lower it costs overall. And it also gives all those little creatures menace to try and get through all the bigger creatures that it's going around. So that's the face card. Our secondary card, if you want to go over that.
Sure, yeah. So the secondary commander for this deck is Tanos, Solemn Survivor. It's 2 colors and a blue for a 1/3. It's also a Human Artificer. 2 colorless, tap it, create a token that's a copy of up to 1 target artifact token you control, and then you mill 2 cards, because that's the new thing, is whenever we do something, we mill. Or you could pay 1 white, blue, black, tap it, sacrifice 2 artifact tokens, exile an artifact or creature from your graveyard, create a token that's a copy of the exiled card, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. You can only activate that as a sorcerer.
Yeah, so you can see that you're really trying to get some tokens there. Obviously, this can go in a completely different direction if you want, but it does work a little bit because you are using the construct tokens from Urza that you can usually sacrifice those to go get something else, make another token of some big powerful card in your graveyard, things like that. So we've got a couple other new cards. This one is, I want to say again, this is the old border hitting me. Sandwell. Yeah, there we go. That's just the text on this. Sandwell, Avenger Ace. It's 1 and a white for a 3/1 human pilot. And it's a legendary creature. And it says, as long as an artifact creature you control is attacking, prevent all damage that would be dealt to Sandwell, Avenger Ace. Whenever Sandwell becomes tapped, exile the top 6 cards of your library. You may cast a vehicle or artifact creature spell from among them, then put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So another really good upgrade for any sort of vehicle deck that you're going to be running. There's not a ton in the deck. I believe that I looked through a little bit, and there's really only like, is there even one in the deck that I remember?
I'm just excited to put that card next to DePaul.
Yes.
DePaul's gonna be a very big fan. May not be a dwarf, but people are gonna freak out over that. But no, I don't think the actual deck itself
doesn't contain any vehicles, but it's more for the artifact creatures in this deck. But you can obviously see that it's telling you, hey, go put this in a DePaul deck. Go put this in one of your other red-white vehicle-based decks. So there's also the one from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty that came out recently. That is white-blue.
Well, there's many of them.
There's a lot of really cool ones in there. So moving on to our next one.
Yep, we got Scholar of New Horizons, colorless and a white, Human Scout. It's a 1/1. Enters battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. And then you can tap it, remove a counter from a permanent you control, Insert your library for a Plains card and reveal it. If an opponent controls more lands than you, you may put that on the battlefield tapped. If you don't put the card on the battlefield tapped, put it to your hand, and then you shuffle your library.
Yeah.
I think this card's really, really cool. Yeah. I think it's a really sweet card. It's like kind of an innocuous design, but I like the fact that you can remove counters from anything. I think that will actually end up being quite a bit of a benefit rather than any kind of negative. So.
Yep. Yeah, this is going to be slotting right into any sort of mono white based, like, you know, anything that you can put counters on. You're going to put your, you know, your +1/+1 counters, your flying counters. If somebody else tries to put
I'm thinking of really mean things.
I'm also thinking of like, oh, we can try and do the 9 lives, you know, and then take the solemnity and all that. You know.
At the end of their turn, I'll remove a counter from my smokestack to go get a land.
That's if you're talking real mean, yeah. The smokestack shenanigans,
I'll take
things
the
like
counter
that.
off of my smokestack so they can
take fading counters off, all that stuff. There's lots of like real mean stuff you can
do all kinds of crazy things.
Our next one is March of Progress. This is a new Overload card. It's a 2 and a blue sorcery. Choose target artifact creature you control. For each creature chosen this way, create a token that's a copy of it, and then has Overload for 6 and a blue. So it is a sorcery speed, so you are going to have to make sure you do that on your turn. It's not going to be tricksy. You're not going to hold your 7 mana, 6 and a blue, and you know, fake anybody out by pretending you're having Cyclonic Rift out. But being able to clone your whole team essentially is going to be pretty good in this. So,
all right. On the next card, we have Wire Surgeons. 4 colors, black, 6/5. Has Fear, an ability you don't see very often anymore, which is can't be blocked except by artifact creatures and/or black creatures. And then it's each artifact creature in your graveyard has Encore, and its Encore cost is equal to its mana cost.
I think this one's really neat because it's doing the old school thing of having Fear, which is again,
it's
like
not
an ability
Intimidate.
that you don't see, like almost. I think they've just completely phased that out in favor of like Intimidate and stuff like that. And then it also has Encore, which is a relatively new ability. So it's a really neat one. I like that a lot. The next one we have is Wreck Hunter. It's a 2/2 for black Human Artificer. Flash, and whenever it enters the battlefield, choose target player. You create a tapped Power Stone token for each non-land card in that player's graveyard that was put there from the battlefield this turn. So really neat if anybody tries to Wrath the board or anything. As long as you've got the black up, you're going to make a bunch of those Power Stone tokens to be able to fuel out your artifacts.
It's pretty cool. Next card we have is a play on older card that was also drawn by Mark Teaton. And that's Hexavus. 6 mana, 0/0 artifact creature construct that's flying. Of course, it enters the battlefield with 6 +1/+1 counters on it. You can pay 1 and remove a +1/+1 counter from it to put a flying counter on another target creature. And then you can pay 1 and remove a counter from another creature you control to put a +1/+1 counter on Hexavus. So it's not making any little Pentavites or anything like that this time. It's just giving everything flying.
Yeah, it's giving things the flying counter, which is actually really nice. Being able to just make your team in the air, and then later if you need to be able to bring those back or in response to a removal spell, you can, okay, we're just going to move those counters back onto the Hexavus to keep that one buffed up. Our next one is Kayla's Music Box. I think this one's pretty interesting. It's a legendary artifact for 2 mana. You pay a white and tap it, look at the top card of your library, then exile it face down. And then the other ability is tap until end of turn, you may play cards you own exiled with Kayla's Music Box. I think this one's really cool because in any sort of like white-based, mono-white, or like white that doesn't have a lot of other ways to like draw and stuff like that, it's a neat way to have an extra card that's just kind of out there.
Yeah, this is going directly in the old frame Magetta deck. Without a doubt. Like,
I'm seriously
this is really sweet for that deck.
Is this going into my Tashar deck? That seems really good. You know, that's up there. So
you don't have draw engines.
Yeah.
All right. The last new card we have in there is Thopter Shop. 3 colorless artifact. Whenever 1 or more artifact creatures you control die, draw a card. You can only trigger that once each turn, of course. And then 2 colors and a white, tap it, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. It's a cool card. Obviously, they made sure to make that card not broken.
Yeah. You know, having to be the once per turn is understandable, and it being essentially a white card with the white activated ability.
Yeah, you didn't need Fecundity for artifacts and 3 colors.
It'd be a little
with more words on it.
Annoying. Yeah. So that one's okay, I think. There's a lot of really cool cards here, but as we do with upgrades, we are going to go through some other cards that we would suggest that you put in. All of these are under $5, and there are alternatives that you can use that are way more expensive. Obviously, there's some really good cards you can put in this deck to make it extremely obnoxious, but we're going to go with a couple of new cards for the deck. I think the first one is going to be the one that is from another very recent, actually the most recent outside of this Commander release, and that is the Warhammer 40,000 Commander decks. The first one is Their Name is Death, which comes from the mono black deck. 3 black, black, black sorcery, destroy all non-artifact creatures.
Yeah, that's all your not your creatures.
Yeah, that's the hope. Is just all
it's
not
just
your
such
creatures.
a good wrath. It's a sweet
It is
wrath.
a really good conditional wrath, and it's surprisingly inexpensive still for how much these decks have been flying off shelves. Some of the singles are just really like this one's only $1 currently. Very good for a wrath, so highly suggest that.
So next card, also from the same Warhammer 40,000 deck, Crypto Thrall, 4 colorless, 3/3 construct. It has Protector. All other artifact creatures you control have Expert. Plain and simple.
Yeah. There is a Archangel in here, the Indomitable Archangel in here that I think this is a pretty good replacement for, because Indomitable Archangel is not an artifact itself. It does have Metalcraft that makes all of your artifacts have Shroud.
Yeah.
And I think this is a pretty good replacement for that.
I would agree.
The next one is one that originally came out in New Phyrexia and has been reprinted just a couple of times in some Commander decks, and I believe Modern Masters 2015, if I'm not mistaken. And that is Dispatch. This one is one that you don't see very often unless people are really just running a mono white artifact heavy deck.
Yeah.
It's an instant for 1 white, tap target creature or Metalcraft. If you control 3 or more creatures, exile that creature.
Yeah, this is kind of like your, you have swords. Swords is already in the deck, but if you don't have path
to exile
to upgrade, this is a perfectly reasonable upgrade.
Yeah, this is a very good, inexpensive too, because it is like currently I think 75 cents.
It's nothing essentially. Yeah, it's
whereas path and swords generally are.
Swords are at least in the deck,
a little more,
but yeah,
swords
path
is in the deck.
Path is definitely.
But it's an alternative option there.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Next card we have up is Nettlecyst. 3 colorless artifact equipment is Living Weapon, and an equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact and or enchantments you control, and it equips for 2.
I think this one's just great.
Yeah, I've been playing a little bit of Vintage, getting ready for Eternal Weekend. This card can get powered up by Mishra's Workshop. That can happen in Commander too, but. Just saying, in regular old-fashioned Magic, you can just...
This is definitely one. I think that anytime we've had an artifact-themed deck, I have tried to put this in there because it is just such a good piece of equipment.
Yeah, it's obnoxious.
Because it's so obnoxious.
Yeah.
The next 3 cards we're going to go with a little bit together. These are 3 that I think kind of, in the same vein of Nettlecyst, I try and put it in any artifact-based deck. These 3 should probably go in most artifact-based decks. Again, not necessarily needed. Sometimes you don't want them. I think this one definitely
more often than not. I
think this one definitely wants to work with these. And that's Scrap Trawler, which is a 3-mana artifact creature construct. It's a 3/2. Whenever it or another artifact creature you control, or another artifact you control, is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, return to your hand target artifact card in your graveyard with lesser mana value. There are already some cards that will let you discard cards. I think that there's what's the one creature? I had his name on my head. Armix.
Armix, whenever you attack with it, you discard.
Yeah, you discard. There's things like that. There's other ways to discard some artifact cards. So being able to get those back is a really big part of it. So we have the Scrap Trawler and also Workshop Assistant, which is a 3-mana 1/2 that when it dies, return another target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. So being able to get those back after you're discarding them with these other abilities is really good.
Yep.
And then lastly, Foundry Inspector is a 3/2 construct for 3 that artifact spells you cast cost 1 less.
Yep.
I think that's
there's several of those you get to play now.
Yeah.
There's just depends on how many of them you really want.
Yeah.
Is the question.
This being an artifact creature is another big part of it.
Yeah. Did this deck have Ethereum Sculptor already in it?
I believe it does have Ethereum Sculptor.
So it's just another Ethereum Sculptor.
Again, that old border. You're just,
the blue.
Yeah, you're just seeing the blue, so you're gonna skip right by it. You're so used to the more recent border. So,
all right. So the next card we have in here is Oswald Fiddlebender. This card does nothing good. It only does degenerate things. But it has a colorless and a white 2/2 Gnome Artificer. It has magical tinkering. You can pay a white to tap it, sacrifice an artifact, search your library for an artifact card with mana value equal to +1 the actual sacrificed mana value, and then you put it in the battlefield. You can only activate it as a sorcery. because that matters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oswald Fiddlebender doesn't do fair things. It never does.
You're doing obnoxious stuff.
Normally.
Like, the big thing is, too, that you're going to be getting a lot of, well, not a lot, but with this, the way this is working, you can have tokens. So you're going to be able to just sack that, go get a 1, and sack that, go get a 2, and you go up the chain from there. Yeah. But you're also going to be able to get your big, powerful things that you want to get.
Yeah. You know? I don't think Birthing Pod of any form has ever been a fair card.
Not really. Next one is a nice, easy way to draw a couple of cards, and that is Reckoner's Bargain. There's been a lot of these different types of cards in the last 5-ish years, even last couple of years that have been made. It's 1 and a black, instant, as an additional cost to cast it. Sacrifice an artifact or creature. You gain life equal to the sacrifice permanent's mana value and draw 2 cards. There are definitely a bunch of other ways that you can do that. With this one, being able to sacrifice any artifact or creature is good, and then being able to just gain a little bit of life is good. You can go with other ones that like gives you treasure, or you can get, you know, a bunch of different ways, and then just draws a couple extra cards. So.
Yep. Next card we have, a big fan of this, is Shram's Expertise. 2 colors, 2 white sorcery. You create 3 colorless servo artifact creature tokens, and then you can cast a card that costs 3 or less from your hand for free.
Yeah.
Just real.
Pretty straightforward. Get you a bunch more artifact creature tokens.
Yeah. I mean, it's normally going to be 6 or 7 mana worth of a spell. So.
Yeah, exactly. And the last one that we have for this deck is one that I really think works well with this commander. Because of the fact that Urza does have affinity for artifact creatures, you're going to be able to potentially cast it a few times. It does cost 6 normally, 3, and then Esper. But if you can get that down, you can get a bunch of creatures out, you can keep casting it over and over again. Echo Storm is going to be a really good card in this deck, because if you cast your Urza 2, 3, 4 times. This says it's a sorcery for 3 blue. Whenever you cast a spell, copy it for each time you cast your commander from the command zone this game. You can choose new targets for the copy. Create a token that's a copy of target artifact. So a lot of your creatures are going to be artifacts, and even if it's not something that you own, if you're playing somebody else that just suddenly has, you know, a Blightsteel Colossus, oh look, now I have 3 of them.
Yeah, the key with this card is that you can choose new targets, so it's not like a Right of Replication thing where you just get a bunch of 1.
Yeah, you're going to want your
get a bunch of different things,
your Blightsteel, you can get this, you can get that. Yeah, and it's make your stuff a little bit cheaper because you're getting your Master of Ethereum or your Ethereum Sculptor out, or get your Master of Ethereum, get another big silly creature. Copy your Mere Battlesphere a few times, get a bunch of those tokens, you know, a bunch of things you can do with this. Yeah, as I was talking before, a couple cards that I think we would want to take out of this deck if we were going to be removing anything to make way for these. Indomitable Archangel, I think, is not quite there. It's not an artifact creature.
Yeah, you're upgrading the abilities, so
yeah, exactly.
You don't necessarily even want Shroud. You'd rather Hexproof. So.
I don't think you said Hexavus wasn't something that you were super.
I'm not a huge Hexavus fan. Like, I like the idea that it gives counters, so then you could use your Scholar of New Horizons to pull the counters back off.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really do much. It's just a big old flyer. Yeah. There, you can get more bang for your buck out of that. Sharding Sphinx. That, I don't know if that card was good in Alara. I don't recall it being very good, other than it being like an air elemental.
Yeah.
At first I read it, I was like, oh, you get to make 4 1/1s, and it's like, no, you just make a 1/1.
There's the Dig Site Engineer. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, you may pay 2. If you do create a 0/0 colorless construct artifact creature token, with this creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact creature you control. It's a 3/3 for 3.
Yeah.
That whenever it basically taxes extra 2 whenever you cast an artifact to get you another construct. And it's kind of okay. It's like it's on the border for me.
The key is that your commander gives menace, so having constructs pretty good.
It's
pretty good usually.
If you're going to be playing something like Shram's Expertise, where you can get 3 1/1s, it's like a little bit. You know, they're not obviously constructs.
Yeah.
But if your commander is already giving you those extra constructs,
you know, the Chrome Courier card looks really cool. I love old bordered gold cards, but it's a 1/1 for 3.
Yeah. And then
like it's just not you could put better draw cards in your deck too.
And then like Ethersworn Adjudicator, I mean, I have a special place in my heart for that because it was around when I started, you know, playing competitively again. So it's a big dumb mythic, but I'm just not sure if a 4/4 flyer for 5 with a couple of abilities that are you know, like the removal part is good. Untapping it is just like it's not going to happen very often. So it's just kind of okay, I think. It's definitely something to consider keeping in, but not always necessarily something that you want to keep in.
Yeah, there's plenty of cards you can pull from here before you have to get too deep.
Yeah.
But they all look sweet, so I don't want to cut any of them.
Yeah, they're all old borders.
They are. They're awesome. That old bordered Sphinx Revelation.
Yeah. The old border Sphinx's Revelation. Like I said, the Biden Athasa, even though the color threw me, it's real sweet, really cool.
Yeah.
I think like the old border Thopter Spy Network is really cool looking. I like the lands.
I love all of it.
Yeah,
I'm in for every bit.
Seeing an Arcane Sanctum and Bajuka Bog and stuff like that, and those old frames is always just a real treat. And we already have certain ones like Soul Rings already got the promo version, stuff like that. But Swift Foot Boots in Old Border, it's going to be in the Brothers War packs as part of those.
As part of the
retro sheet, and the foil I've seen online is already. It's really, really nice. So that is the Urza's Iron Alliance deck for the Brothers War Commander decks. Let us know in the comments what cards you would add to the deck and what cards you would take out. Make sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, and obviously hit that bell to get notified of all new episodes of upgrades. For Jonathan Suarez, I'm Jeremy Knoll, and we will see you next time.